So you've heard the term neurodiversity and you've heard about neurodivergent people. What does that mean? Let's kind of dig into this and look at it, particularly from a neurodivergent perspective. So neurodiversity is kind of a blanket term, and the way I like to think about it is a square is a parallelogram, right? So a person with autism, or someone who's autistic, or someone who's got ADHD, or someone who's dyslexic is neurodivergent, and together make neurodiversity when there's lots of people around them, along with neurotypicals, folks that just process information normally. Okay, so that's what neurodiversity in general means. When you're addressing folks who are neurodivergent, you're going to find that they're all very, very different, and even within their own diagnoses. So I've worked very closely with lots of autistic people, and I will tell you this: if you've met one person with autism, you met one person with autism, right? They're all very individual. They all have their individual issues, and then they have like coexisting conditions that are on top of that. So social anxiety and aphasia, and some of us can have dyspraxia or dyslexia, or additional conditions on top of that. So there's no one particular way of addressing that. If you're talking to people on the autism spectrum, and they're autistic and whatnot, then obviously you want to address them as autistic. But if you're looking at it from a corporate perspective, and you're looking at it from a business perspective, your whole company is going to be encompassing neurodiversity, whether you want to admit it or not, right? There's an estimated 1 in 7 people who are neurodivergent, right? Those who are not neurotypical. And so if you walk into a room and there are 10 people, at least one of them is going to be autistic, or they're going to have ADHD, or they're going to be dyslexic. So what do you need to do as a professional teaching folks who are neurodiverse? First off, you're not going to know if someone is neurodiverse. There's no requirement to declare your neurodivergent condition, right? Or your existence. Some people are very happy with that. Others don't like to share their experience. And so when you approach it that way, and there are quite a few people who have gone undiagnosed. I will tell you that, back in the 70s, and maybe this is dating myself, but back in the 70s, they didn't diagnose kids with ADHD, and they didn't diagnose kids with autism. Often if someone had autism, they would say, oh, your parents were just really bad parents, because it was believed that kids with autism had very cold and unfeeling and uncaring mothers. Thank you, pop psychologists of the day. And so they would take those kids away. And so diagnoses very, very seldom. And so there's a whole generation of folks that are autistic, folks that have ADHD, folks that are dyslexic that haven't been diagnosed because they didn't diagnose back in the 70s and 80s and whatnot. And so as they grow older and they get to be my age and so on, that's when they start realizing, and that's when they start getting tested, and that's when they start getting their diagnoses. So as a trainer, you need to be aware that people process things differently, and they're going to seem a little weird, meaning they're not going to seem very typical, right? They may say things that are a little off, or they may say things that are scripted from movies and whatnot, and they're waiting for you to understand and to get that script. I will tell you the number of times I've scripted a TV show or a movie and just kind of sat there waiting for people to figure it out, and no one figures it out because their brain's not working the same way mine does. Um, so you need to be aware of that, and that's going to show up during classroom training, particularly during classroom training, because for folks with autism, they're going to find classroom training a little stressful. That's a lot of people. There's expectations of performance across a very specific timeline. That's going to be problematic. For folks with ADHD, it's going to be spending a lot of time working on the same thing over and over and over again, and not moving on or not going onto this this tangent, or not being more spontaneous. That's going to be problematic for them. For folks who are dyslexic, reading is going to be a problem, and sometimes writing. If they have aphasia, then they're going to be giving different terms or different acronyms for what they really mean, and it's just because their brain scrambles it up. For folks who have dyscalculia, those folks are going to have problems with basic math. That's just how that works. They're going to be fantastic writers, so they're going to have difficulty with doing math. So keeping this in mind and having time and allowing time for folks to stop and process things and better understand and be able to work through it on their own is going to be absolutely invaluable. As a training instructor, having office hours, being willing to stay after a little longer to answer questions and to go through and review stuff, or have some time before class starts or even during lunch. Stuff like that is very valuable to folks who are neurodivergent. For managers and for program owners, so I'm talking to direct managers, I'm talking to directors, I'm talking to the chief learning officer, you folks, having a plan in place to best engage your folks who are neurodivergent is absolutely necessary. You need to be able to sit down and really engage these folks through multiple types of deliveries, allowing them to engage in ways that are more comfortable for their particular needs. And then recognizing that they have strengths and then building off of those strengths. As a manager, as a direct manager, as part of your development process, you need to know the training that's available and the training processes that are available, because then you can use those training options and build up a career development program for your folks who are neurodiverse and help them most effectively by catering to their specific needs. And a lot of this you're going to find by recognizing their strengths, recognizing their needs, and then meeting those needs through their strengths. All right. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments. I love reading them. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and enjoy your learning journey.